That Tuesday afternoon in Washington, D.C., the House Oversight Committee's hearing room filled to capacity. C-SPAN cameras swept over the dais, catching every anxious breath and subtle shift in posture as renowned neurosurgeon and former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Dr. Ben Carson settled into his seat at the witness table. He carried himself like someone who'd appeared there dozens of times. Few in the room suspected that this session would spark one of the year's biggest viral political clips. Across the table, Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett adjusted her microphone, her stare firm and direct. What came next would render Carson silent and ripple through social media for weeks. In just 30 seconds, Crockett would unravel the carefully built story Carson had told about expertise and real insight into everyday Americans' hardships. Dr. Carson, she started, her tone steady yet edged. You've challenged my education and suggested I'm unqualified to address housing policy. Yet you've missed one key detail. When I point it out, it'll be clear to everyone who's truly disconnected. A hush descended. The subtle grin on Carson's face vanished. Committee members edged forward. Her next words would turn into the month's most viewed congressional moment, racking up over 50 million views within 48 hours. Before the main clash, the narrator reminded the audience to like and subscribe to catch more critical events influencing the country's path, and to drop their location in comments to track how widely the clip spread. To grasp why this confrontation hit so hard, it's essential to understand the key figures and the build-up. Ben Carson, the acclaimed neurosurgeon famous for leading the first successful separation of head conjoined twins, shaped his political image around surgical mastery and a rags-to-riches tale. Raised in Detroit amid tough circumstances, he climbed to the height of American medicine. His calm, soft-spoken style won admiration from both sides of the aisle. When Donald Trump named him HUD head, it seemed fitting, a person who'd experienced poverty and beaten it. Yet a less highlighted aspect of Carson's time there seldom surfaced. Despite his surgical genius, he brought zero prior experience in housing policy to the role. His leadership drew criticism, from a $31,000 office dining set to plans that would triple rent for the neediest in public housing. Detractors said the men who'd once faced poverty now appeared removed from the people HUD aimed to help. Opposite him sat Jasmine Crockett, a freshman Texas Congresswoman already known as a sharp questioner in hearings. At 42, she offered another form of expertise. Prior to Congress, she'd worked as a public defender and civil rights lawyer, meeting clients without means, witnessing housing policy in actual homes and courtrooms over evictions. She lacked medical fame. No surgical honors decorated her office. Instead, she had direct years handling housing matters, battling evictions, submitting complaints, applying housing rules in the field, not from a high-rise in D.C. Strains between them had built over weeks. In a conservative podcast appearance, Carson critiqued younger progressives' lacking grasp of housing market nuances. He avoided naming Crockett, but the implication was obvious. She'd been among his sharpest detractors, pushing HUD on its shortcomings in tackling the affordable housing shortfall. The trigger for this hearing, though, came from a tweet Carson sent 3 days prior. Certain congressional members could use a lesson that managing government initiatives demands more than pure motives. Knowledge and background count. The intent was plain: Crockett and similar lawmakers didn't have the credentials to critique him. It was elitism wielded like a tool. Carson hadn't seen he was stepping into a snare of his own making. Officially, the session covered HUD's upcoming fiscal year budget proposal, a standard affair. But everyone felt it would prove anything but ordinary. Cameras stayed fixed. Social media staff lingered nearby. Journalists poised their pens. This felt like prime political drama, with every good spot occupied. Carson gave his initial remarks in the calm cadence he'd honed. He discussed budget restraint, ending reliance, and building community strength via ownership. His rhythm landed every point his supporters loved. Lawmakers took turns with routine queries on funding and schedules. Carson wove in surgical analogies, framing the housing crisis like a diagnosis. It looked like he'd coast through yet another smooth outing. Then Crockett's indicator lit. "Dr. Carson," she began, piercing the dull hum of numbers. "Let's discuss qualifications." Carson sat straighter, a slight smile emerging. He'd faced this before, a fresh progressive preaching empathy. He felt ready. "Go ahead, Congresswoman," he said, courteous outwardly, condescending underneath. "You've lately stressed that grasping housing policy needs education and background," Crockett went on. You've hinted that some in Congress, frankly, ones like me, aren't fit to scrutinize your agency. I just feel intricate policy demands deep insight, Carson replied evenly. My surgical background trained me to assess interconnected systems. That's my contribution to HUD. Your surgical background, Crockett repeated, pausing on the words. Yes, let's explore that. You're a brain surgeon. Indeed. I directed pediatric neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins for years, he noted, pride showing. Quite remarkable, Crockett replied, her inflection implying the opposite. And that prepares you for housing policy how? Carson's grin stiffened. It showed me how to tackle intricate issues, think holistically. To conduct brain operations, Crockett interrupted. It prepared you for brain operations, which is amazing. Honestly, Dr. Carson, when did you last handle an eviction notice yourself? The atmosphere tensed. Devices lowered. Attention sharpened. That's not pertinent, Carson started. When did you last counsel a family losing their home? Crockett pushed. Bargain with a landlord wrongly holding a deposit. Submit a HUD form, not as secretary, but as someone seeking aid. Congresswoman, my expertise lies in neurosurgery, great for brains, Crockett stated calmly, but not necessarily for housing economies. Since you raised education, let's dive in. She pulled a document from her pile. Behind Carson, staffers traded glances. In hearings, a lawmaker grabbing papers seldom boded well for the witness. You obtained your MD from Michigan in 1977, she listed, training at Johns Hopkins. All elite. Correct. Yes, Carson confirmed, sensing her direction. Undergrad in psychology from Yale, 1973. Yes, strong credentials, she acknowledged. But scanning your background, one thing stands out absent. Maybe you can highlight it. The shot widened to show both. Where exactly did you train in housing policy, Dr. Carson? Urban development, economics, public management, property law. Where's your direct expertise for heading HUD? Carson adjusted. Leadership abilities carry over. Not my question, she cut sharply. You claim education is vital for housing policy grasp. So where's yours in that area? My time as secretary. The position you took without any housing background beforehand. Her edge sharpened. Now, on education, since you emphasize it. I hold a BBA and JD from Howard Law. I spent a decade practicing housing bias cases, eviction protection, civil rights, public housing. She continued. I've advocated for over 200 eviction-facing families. Submitted more HUD filings than you likely reviewed in your whole term. Entered the exact units your policies target, seen the mold, felt faulty heating, dealt with repair-denying owners. So on qualifications and learning, who's better equipped for housing policy talk? The brain surgeon who never trained in it, or the attorney who practiced it daily? Quiet swelled. Carson parted his lips, then shut them. His poise cracked. Crockett pressed on. And what's more intriguing, she said, tone dropping to a calm intensity. As she checked his history, she uncovered a personal housing detail worth sharing. Aides murmured closer. One moved toward Carson, but he dismissed it, holding steady. You've shaped a tale of self-reliance and ascent, effort and learning. Worthy, to a point, she noted. But one part stays untold, right? She raised another paper. A camera clicked, catching the build-up. Dr. Carson, did your family accept government aid during your childhood? Carson's expression hardened. Plenty in Detroit did. Not answering. Yes or no, did yours? A pause. Then quietly, yes. Specifically, Crockett read on, food stamps for your household. You resided in public housing. You gained from initiatives aiding low-income families, the same ones you seek to reduce now. Murmurs spread. Aides shifted. Journalists scribbled fast. Devices lifted. Hold on, Crockett raised her volume to regain control. Even more telling part ahead. She rose, positioning the sheet toward cameras. Recognize this. Yale financial aid documents. Dr. Carson, did you get need-based support for Yale? Without federal loans and grants, could you have managed that elite tuition you value? His look turned guarded, nearing irritation. I earned everything through effort. Nobody disputes your work, Crockett interjected. But not solo. You got assistance. Government assistance. The kind you now aim to restrict for others. You scaled the ladder, Dr. Carson, then seek to pull it away. She resumed her seat. Message sent. Yet one final note remained. So when you doubt my credentials, insist I missed the education or background for housing policy, recall this, she declared. I learned the laws ruling housing. You learned the brain. I protected families against eviction. You performed head surgeries. I operated within the framework you oversee. You gained from the framework you want to weaken. Now say again, who's genuinely qualified on housing policy? Stillness gripped the space. The surgeon of marathon operations gazed ahead, composure shattered. Speech escaped him. He attempted, lips moving without sound. Detaching joined twins proved easier than escaping her airtight reasoning. Finally, he managed, Congresswoman, I believe you're distorting. Am I? She fired back. Which piece? Your aid receipt. Yale with grants. No housing studies. Or cutting programs that aided you. Tell me, Dr. Carson, what's inaccurate? He pivoted. My poverty background actually equips me better. Your background dates to decades past, Crockett overrode. You left poverty in the 70s. What's shifted since? All of it. Costs soared. Pay lagged. Those helpful programs eroded. You're applying 70s fixes to current issues, and failing. She grabbed another page. Carson recoiled. By then, all knew her documents struck hard. Let's review your HUD tenure, she said. You suggested tripling rent for poorest residents. Slashed homeless veteran aid. Dropped discrimination probe funds. And notably, approved a $31,000 office dining suite while trimming public housing upkeep. That suite, Carson tried. $31,000, she echoed deliberately. Imagine how many households that could shelter. Deposits. Rent payments. Yet you required luxury furniture. She lifted her phone, an uncommon move for stark effect. Dr. Carson, here's a clip, she announced. Patricia Williams, Houston resident, 67, disabled, limited income. Facing eviction due to your policy shift. No options left. Care to view? Carson's lawyer objected, Congresswoman, this seems improper. Now improper. Crockett turned sharply. Was it proper when he challenged my credentials? Used his stage to diminish junior lawmakers. Counsel, sit, he urged. He started the qualifications debate. We'll conclude it. The lawyer yielded, outmatched. Crockett faced Carson again. Your issue, she told him, is assuming your poverty escape means all can replicate it. That non-surgeons just lack effort. But your ladder vanished. You removed it. She rose once more, nearing without breach. True housing knowledge. Knowing families require $22 hourly for a two-bedroom fair rent. No state allows minimum wage for that. We're missing 7 million units for lowest incomes. The room absorbed each fact. Real knowledge sees eviction rises 20% in years. Most folks won health crisis from homelessness. Housing bias persists, illegal, yet ongoing. HUD fights it, or should, not aids it. She sat but stood for the finale. Top qualification, she posed, is truly caring for policy-affected lives, recalling origins. Leveraging success to raise others, not withdraw the ladder. She held a last document. From the National Low-Income Housing Coalition. Ranking HUD leaders past 30 years on affordable housing progress. Your position. Carson stayed mute. His quiet spoke volumes. Last, Crockett stated. The degree-laden neurosurgeon doubting others' credentials, dead last. Not for lacking brilliance, you have it, but for forgetting need. Forgetting urgency. Not all become surgeons. All merit shelter. The end neared. Her voice softened to a piercing murmur reaching far. One final query, Dr. Carson, she said. Consider well. Nation watches. If credentials and education are crucial, if your Yale and medical path uniquely fit you for HUD, why perform so poorly? Chaos erupted. Order fractured. Gasps echoed from media rows. Claps mixed with stunned whispers. The gavel struck futilely, the instant already viral. Uploads began. Stories formed. Carson appeared sunken. The steady nerve of epic operations and campaigns faded. The facade cracked. Left was a figure exposed, not by attacks, but evidence, truth, his own history. He attempted recovery. Congresswoman Crockett, I admire your drive. No, she halted him finally. You don't admire me. Real respect wouldn't mean doubting my place. Implying unfit. Brandishing degrees as arms. Truth is, I fit here. From experiencing housing risk. Advocating at the edge. Mastering housing law. And voters chose me to voice against leaders forgetting hardship. She settled, hands folded, calm, I yield my remaining time. The chair banged for calm, announced brief break. Carson exited swiftly, team shielding him. But harm was irreversible. In less than 20 minutes, Jasmine Crockett dismantled Carson's case and the image sustaining it. As attendees cleared, Crockett lingered, organizing documents quietly. Aides gathered, excitement barely held. She stayed composed. No gloating needed. She recognized the precision, a methodical takedown fueled by prep, study, and authentic expertise's weight. Soon, the video spread online. Shared endlessly. Hashtags surged, hashtag Crockett destroys Carson, hashtag qualifications matter, hashtag pull up the ladder. Networks rushed coverage. Analysts debated. MSNBC's Rachel Maddow called it beyond a quip, a reversal of authority claims. Even Fox found it tough to deflect. One pundit admitted, he invited it by attacking her credentials, she entered with proof. Buzz filled homes and offices. Baltimore public housing tenants celebrated. Houston tenant groups screened it. Detroit elders saw personal pasts validated, aid once a lifeline, not snare. Crockett's team issued measured response, this wasn't personal. It's about trusting policymakers for millions. Prestige in unrelated areas, or actual experience and insight. Carson's side aimed calm but missed, Dr. Carson's achievements stand alone. Online countered, yes, including $31,000 furniture amid public cuts. Wider discourse ignited on expertise. Essays multiplied. Journals noted, domain transfer error, wrongly assuming top skills in one area grant command in another. In Congress, shifts occurred subtly. Newer lawmakers, particularly women and people of color, noted tactics. Aides messaged, adopt Crockett method, facts primary, story secondary, evidence always. Impacts followed. GOP senators eased HUD reductions. Cross-party voucher efforts revived. Deeper effects touched lives. Crockett's inbox overflowed, mold reports, faulty lifts, car-sleeping families. 1. No surgeon needed for dignity. Needed, someone knowing winter heat failure is crisis, not budget note. The clip taught broadly. Comm classes dissected it. Law courses analyzed proof structure. That's arriving with receipts, a learner noted. Carson's visibility altered. Skipped events. When appearing, dodged credential topics. Unshakable authority dimmed. Crockett's profile grew, yet she focused onward. On Weekend Talk, asked about regretting tough clothes, no hesitation. When policy upends lives, soft words are indulgence. On future ambitions, faint smile, I'll oversee housing till rent's affordable. That's my advancement. Weeks later, surveys reflected change. HUD approval lowest ever. Housing crisis awareness rose bipartisanly. The moment reshaped views on aid, as support structure, not trap. A year on, echoes lingered. Carson at HUD, but power trimmed. Stopped citing Yale or broad leadership. Crockett persisted, team motivated. Issued reviews, held tenant-lawyer sessions. Core takeaway wasn't virility, but rigor letting truth cut. Mindset spread to local boards. When irrelevant titles waved, questions arose, how links to this? Crockett on biggest surprise, didn't foresee, pulling ladder, hitting so deep. People feel it. Not jealousy, the pain of hearing needed support wasteful, since one crossed long ago. On empathy for Carson, no pause. Compassion yes. Malice no. Forgetting yes, and forgetting's privilege. Success insulates, lower struggles seem abstract. They're not. Ultimately, not ruin, but realignment. Taught blending humility with thoroughness, yielding on non-expertise, demanding on true. Showed in politics and beyond, diploma's gloss doesn't shelter families. It's applied knowledge. Prep trumps prestige for lives at stake. Relevance counts. Evidence counts. Outcomes most. If this deep dive clarified the issues, hit like and subscribe for ongoing breakdowns of policy-shifting events. Comment your views. Too harsh, or precisely accountable. Next clash to explore. Enable alerts for upcoming, another overlooked hearing poised to shift dialogue. And recall, amid flash rewards, be the one with documents. Show the effort. Don't confuse status with substance. When told you unfit for the space, review notes. Breathe. Let truth talk. You could alter discourse, and someone's home, access, security from cold. Next time, stay sharp, involved, and defend your real-world knowledge's value. In today's politics, Carson found out, Crockett proved, wall degrees don't win. Folder facts and heart for people do.